Two religions, one God by their own account, two visions of the worst possible destiny, and they disagree on almost every detail. How long does it last? Who ends up there? What does it actually feel like? Is there any way out? And is its purpose punishment or something else entirely? Christianity and Islam are the two largest religions on earth. Together they represent over half of all living human beings. Both believe in a final judgment. Both believe in a place of severe consequences for those who reject God and choose evil. But the hell of Christianity and the hell of Islam, when you put them side by side, in detail, from the actual texts are so different that serious scholars have spent centuries debating whether they're describing the same place. Today we do what almost nobody does. We go to the actual sources, the Bible, the Quran, the Hadith, the greatest theologians of both traditions. No sensationalism, no agenda, just two of history's most consequential ideas, examined with the seriousness they deserve. Let's begin. Hell in Christianity, building the most famous place nobody wants to go. Where does Christian hell come from? The answer is more complicated than most Christians realize, and understanding the construction of Christian hell helps make sense of why it looks the way it does. Stage 1. The Hebrew background, Sheol. The earliest Jewish scriptures describe the afterlife realm as Sheol, a shadowy underworld where all the dead go, righteous and wicked alike. No punishment, no reward, just a dim, quiet existence in the darkness. This is not hell in any meaningful sense. Stage 2. The New Testament Gehenna. When Jesus speaks of hell in the Gospels, he uses the word Gehenna, derived from the Hebrew Gehinnom, the Valley of Hinnom outside Jerusalem. This valley had a disturbing history. Child sacrifices in ancient times, and later, a perpetually burning city garbage dump. Jesus uses this image with urgency and directness, mostly in warnings to the religious leaders of his day, to the wealthy, to the self-righteous. It would be better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into Gehenna. What Jesus describes is not a theological architecture, it is a warning. A gut-level, visceral image of what awaits those who walk certain roads. Stage 3. Apocalyptic texts and Paul. The Apostle Paul adds the concept of eternal separation from God, which many theologians consider the true core of the Christian hell. In 2 Thessalonians, Paul describes the fate of those who don't know God as everlasting destruction and exclusion from the presence of the Lord. Not necessarily torture, not necessarily fire, but permanent, irreversible separation from the source of all goodness. Stage 4. The Book of Revelation. Revelation gives Christian hell its most dramatic imagery. The lake of fire, described as the second death, receives the beast, the false prophet, death itself, and anyone whose name was not found written in the book of life. It burns with sulfur. It is permanent. The number and nature of hell's inhabitants in Revelation has been argued about ever since. Some read it as describing a hell populated by very few, only those who actively chose evil. Others read it as the destiny of all who die without faith. Stage 5. Theology, Dante, and popular culture. The organized, layered, precisely catalogued Christian hell that most people imagine is largely the creation of post-biblical theology, particularly Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy, 1320c. Dante gave hell 9 circles. Each circle punishes a specific category of sin, with a punishment that mirrors the nature of the offense. The lustful are swept in an eternal storm, forever driven by the passions that drove them in life. The gluttonous rot in filth. The violent are submerged in a river of boiling blood. The fraudulent are encased in ice, unable to feel warmth. Dante's hell is a masterpiece of poetic justice. It is also theology written by a genius poet in exile, settling scores with his political enemies, several of whom he placed in hell by name, while still living. His vision is so vivid, so architecturally complete, that it effectively replaced the biblical hell in the Western imagination. The three main Christian views of hell. Christianity is not monolithic on hell, and the internal debate is significant. Eternal conscious torment, the traditional view held by most Catholic, Orthodox, and conservative Protestant traditions. Hell is permanent. The suffering is real and unending. This is grounded in Jesus' language of fire that never goes out and the worm that never dies. Annihilationism, held by a significant minority of evangelical scholars and increasingly discussed in mainstream theology. The wicked are not tortured forever, they simply cease to exist. Death is the second death. The punishment is irreversible, not because it continues, but because it is final. Universal reconciliation held by some theologians across multiple traditions. Eventually, all souls are reconciled to God. Hell is purifying, not punishing, or it is temporarily experienced and then overcome. This view was held by Origen, one of the greatest early Christian theologians, before being declared heretical. These three views are not fringe variations. They represent centuries of serious theological argument within Christianity, and the Bible itself provides support for all three, depending on which texts you emphasize. Hell in Islam Jahannam, the fire that knows you, the Islamic hell, is called Jahannam, derived from the same Hebrew root as Gehenna, a detail that itself tells you something about the shared heritage of these traditions. But what Islam does with that shared root is substantially different. The Quran's hell is specific, physical, and present. The Quran returns to Jahannam more frequently than almost any other topic. It is described across hundreds of verses with a consistency and specificity that reflects Islam's core theological conviction. The Day of Judgment is real, it is coming, and its consequences are not metaphors. What Jahannam looks like. 7 gates, each corresponding to a different category of sin and a different level of punishment. The levels descend in severity, with the deepest reserved for the hypocrites, those who professed faith while hiding disbelief. The fuel of Jahannam is described explicitly in the Quran, people and stones. The Quran says that the fire was prepared for the disbelievers, and its fuel includes both human beings and the idols they worshipped. The heat is described as incomprehensible. A hadith describes a single tooth of one of the inhabitants of hell as being as large as the mountain of Uhud, the scale of suffering proportional to the scale of the rejection of God. The physical experience. Jahannam's descriptions in the Quran are notably, deliberately physical, matching the physical specificity of Jannah's pleasures. The skin of the inhabitants is burned and replaced so that it can be burned again. The Quran states this explicitly. Every time their skins are roasted, we will replace them with other skins so they may taste the punishment. They drink from springs of boiling water. They eat from the tree of Zakum, a tree described as growing in the depths of hell, its fruit like the heads of devils, which fills the stomach like boiling oil. They are clothed in garments of fire, struck with iron rods. Their sighing and wailing is like the braying of donkeys. The inhabitants. The Quran is precise about who faces Jahannam, those who reject God after having received the message. The hypocrites, those who professed Islam while secretly rejecting it, consistently described as facing the deepest punishment. The arrogant who refused to worship God, those who oppressed the weak and ignored the poor. What about sincere believers who committed major sins? This is one of the most discussed questions in Islamic theology. The mainstream position held by Sunni Islam is that Muslims who die with major unrepented sins may face a period in Jahannam as purification, but will ultimately be removed through God's mercy or through the intercession of the Prophet Muhammad. The key distinction: permanent Jahannam is for disbelievers and hypocrites. Sinful believers are not permanently consigned there. This is a crucial difference from many Christian traditions, which make salvation entirely a matter of faith and reject the idea of purification after death. The role of Iblis. Unlike the Christian Satan who rules hell as a kind of dark king, Iblis, the Islamic devil, is also in Jahannam. He is not its administrator, he is its inmate. Jahannam has no ruler other than the angels God appointed over it, chief among them, Malik, the angel of hell, described in the Quran as stern and unyielding. The condemned will call on Malik to ask God to end their punishment. Malik's response, "You will remain. Is Jahannam eternal?" This is the most theologically contested question in Islamic eschatology, and the debate is ancient. The dominant Sunni position, Jahannam is eternal for disbelievers and hypocrites. The Quran uses language of eternity, khulud, to describe their stay, but a significant minority of scholars, including the medieval theologian Ibn Taymiyyah and his student Ibn al-Qayyim, argued that Jahannam, despite its severity, will eventually end. Their argument, God's mercy, which the Quran describes as encompassing all things, cannot be permanently defeated by human sin. Eventually, even Jahannam is extinguished. This view is controversial and not mainstream, but it is not fringe either. It represents a serious scholarly tradition within Islam. Side by side, the 5 key differences. Now, the direct comparison. 5 dimensions. No softening. 1. Who is there? Christianity, traditional. All who die without saving faith in Christ. The specifics vary by denomination. Some traditions hold that sincere seekers who never heard the gospel are treated differently. Others do not. But the baseline, hell is the destination for the unsaved. Islam, disbelievers and hypocrites. Muslims who sin may experience Jahannam temporarily for purification, but are generally expected to eventually enter paradise through God's mercy. The Quran also explicitly leaves open the question of people who never receive the message. God judges them according to a different standard. The gap, Islam's hell, is, in a sense, more precisely targeted, reserved for those who rejected a message they received, not simply for those who were born into the wrong religion. 2. Is it eternal? Christianity. The dominant traditional answer is yes, eternal conscious torment for the damned. But annihilationism, permanent death, rather than ongoing suffering, and universalism, eventual reconciliation of all souls, are serious theological alternatives with substantial scholarly support. Islam. The dominant answer is also yes, eternal for disbelievers. But the minority scholarly tradition that argues for Jahannam's eventual end is more prominent within Islam than universalism is within mainstream Christianity. Both traditions are wrestling with the same problem. Can infinite punishment be proportionate to finite sin? 3. What is the experience? Christianity ranges widely by theological tradition. At its most literal, fire, darkness, weeping and gnashing of teeth. New Testament language, the lake of fire, Revelation. At its most theological, permanent separation from God, the deprivation of the only thing that could fulfill a human soul. C.S. Lewis described hell as people who have finally gotten exactly what they wanted, to be left alone, without God, and discovering that this is itself the torment. Islam, specifically and consistently physical. The Quran describes the pain in bodily terms: burning skin, boiling water, the zakum tree. This matches Islam's general theological approach. The body matters, the physical is real, the resurrection is bodily, and the experiences of the afterlife are fully sensory. 4. Who runs it? Christianity. In popular culture, Satan rules hell. Theologically, this is almost universally rejected. Satan is a prisoner, not a king. Hell is administered by God's justice. Some traditions have angelic guardians. Islam, Malik, the angel of hell, and his companions, the Zabaniya, 19 fierce angels described in the Quran as administering punishment. Iblis is explicitly also a prisoner, not a ruler. Both traditions agree. The idea of the devil enjoying hell is a cultural invention, not a theological one. 5. What is its purpose? Christianity. The dominant view. Hell exists as the consequence of free will. A God who allows genuine freedom must allow the possibility of genuinely rejecting him. Hell is not punishment imposed from outside. It is the natural destination of a soul that has structured itself around the rejection of God. The theologian C.S. Lewis, "The doors of hell are locked from the inside." Islam, more explicitly punitive, but also more explicitly limited in some interpretations. Jahannam is a consequence of real injustice. It is where the oppressor faces the weight of what they did to the oppressed, where the arrogant experience the complete reversal of their self-assessment. And crucially, the Quran's description of hell often appears alongside the reminder that God is Al-Ghafur, Al-Rahim, the most forgiving, the most merciful. The punishment is real, but it exists within a framework of a God whose mercy, the Quran says, surpasses his wrath. What both traditions are really saying: strip away the fire and the ice and the boiling water and the 9 circles, and what are both traditions actually arguing? That choices are real. In a universe where a powerful force of love and justice created human beings and gave them freedom, the freedom to love and the freedom to reject the consequences of that freedom have to be real. A freedom that costs nothing is not freedom. A love that can be rejected without any consequence is not truly offered. Both Christianity and Islam are making the same fundamental claim: your life is not a rehearsal. The choices you make, the person you build yourself into, the way you treat the people around you, the degree to which you orient yourself toward or away from the good, these choices have ultimate significance. Hell, in both traditions, is the universe's way of saying, this mattered. The suffering of the poor that you ignored, it mattered. The cruelties you inflicted and forgot, they mattered. The love you were offered and refused, it mattered. This is not comfortable. It is not designed to be comfortable. But it is the flip side of the other thing both traditions claim, that every act of goodness also mattered. Every kindness, every sacrifice, every moment of love. If hell says your evil was real, then heaven says your good was real too. They cannot be separated. 2 traditions, 1 shared heritage, 2 extraordinarily detailed visions of the worst possible destiny. And beneath the different fires and different gates and different categories of punishment, the same insistence. This is not a meaningless universe. What you do with your life, how you treat other people, what you choose to love, what you build yourself into, is not arbitrary. It is not forgotten. It is not neutral. Both Christianity and Islam are asking the same question of every person who has ever lived. If you knew that every choice you made was being permanently recorded and would one day be completely visible, would you live differently? Not because you're afraid, but because you understand what your choices actually are. Here's what you took away today. Christian hell was built in stages from Sheol to Gehenna to Revelation's lake of fire to Dante's 9 circles. Its dominant tradition holds it as eternal, but serious theologians argue for annihilationism and universalism. Islam's Jahannam is described with extraordinary physical specificity across hundreds of Quranic verses. Its deepest levels are reserved for hypocrites. Mainstream Islam holds it as eternal for disbelievers, but allows for divine mercy to remove sinful believers. Both traditions reject Satan as hell's ruler, and both traditions ultimately use hell to make the same point. Choices are real, the universe keeps score, and love that cannot be refused is not love. Next video, hell in every religion, not just these 2. Every culture's vision of the worst possible afterlife, from the Norse world of ice to the Aztec 9 levels to Buddhist narakas. The full picture. Subscribe and drop a comment. Do you think eternal punishment can ever be just regardless of what was done? That one's going to be a conversation. See you in the next one.